Minks are highly aggressive semi-aquatic creatures. They are also known as water weasels, and they are vicious and ruthless. They have a habit of killing prey much bigger than themselves, and usually they kill more than they can eat. Whether you've seen a mink in action or not, stick around as we look at 15 horrific moments when minks go nuclear. Number 15. Mink attacks muskrat. This red-headed mink chases and attacks a muskrat in a little stream, and it's a vicious battle. Even though the muskrat is tough and giving everything it has, this mink seems to know what he's doing, and he's got the momentum. So I think it's the end of the road for the muskrat, unless a miracle happens, which is not the case. This albino mink is not the most experienced hunter just yet, and it's trying to dispose of a muskrat in this video. The mink has already killed muskrats in the past, but not a whole bunch of them, so it's still learning. You can see the muskrat giving the mink quite a fight as they tumble and roll over during the scuffle. It looks like this mink has got his hands full with this muskrat, and I wouldn't bet on the mink this time around. This muskrat is one hell of a fighter. A mink drags a dead muskrat along a small stream after killing it in a fight. I guess for these little guys, it's harder for them to drag the dead animal than it is to kill it. A mink chased and ambushed a muskrat on the side of a road. And even though the muskrat tried to fend the mink off, the mink managed to drag the muskrat into the forest. Number 14. Mink attacks squirrel. Normally, minks can quickly dispatch their prey, but this rock squirrel put up a fight and took much longer than usual to succumb. This mink, which is owned by the individual filming, had just killed a similarly sized squirrel in a matter of seconds 2 weeks prior to this hunt. For people concerned about the mink, he was not bitten or injured during the struggle. Minks are very good at subduing dangerous prey while avoiding being bitten. The mink was able to dispatch of the squirrel without receiving so much as one noticeable scratch. The poor squirrel fought for its life, but I guess it came up short. A man looking out of a window witnessed what he thought was a black squirrel rushing towards the woods, colliding with a fox squirrel, resulting in a tragic conflict. As he stood there watching them flop around and whirl in a circle like they were in a cartoon battle, he wondered why squirrels would fight on the ground. They usually run up and down trees chasing each other. So he stepped outside to get a better look, and it appeared to be a gigantic mink kicking the squirrel's buttocks. He took a quick glance at the man and bolted about 40 feet away. The squirrel sat up, stunned, and attempted to flee, but the mink reappeared in front of the guy, leapt on the squirrel, and resumed his pounding. The man dashed back to his car and grabbed his camera. He chose to let nature take its course due to the large amount of squirrels in his region. They split up again due to his presence, with the squirrel hiding somewhere and the mink fleeing a few hundred feet away. Number 13. Mink attacks swan, chickens, and geese. Swans are tough birds, but I guess this mink didn't get the memo before attacking the bird in the water. This is a vicious fight, but the swan is a big bird and the mink couldn't overpower it. You must give kudos to the mink for trying though. The cameraman stated that he followed the swan for 3 days after the incident to make sure he was okay, and on the third, he could tell the swan had recuperated from the fight and was eating and going through his usual daily routine. This mink surprises this swan when it goes directly for the bird's head. The swan flaps its wings and jumps all over the place to dispatch of the mink, and it works. The mink is not able to hold on to the swan and will have to look for some other animal to pester on this day. This mink enters a chicken coop looking for food. Apparently he was able to kill dozens of chickens over time. There are some geese in the coop and they try to repel the mink. It seems to work until the mink comes back from the other side and snatches a small chicken. The geese are alerted, but it's too late. Minks are small, so they can get through small holes and enter chicken coops easily. They kill for sport and drink blood, so they're a force to be reckoned with. You have seen them in action, so it's not difficult to believe this. With everything being relative, these small weasels are as dangerous as lions and tigers. Number 12. Mink and martin attack seagull, goose, and kingfisher. We have seen seagulls in action in the past, and they are no pushovers. But this mink has launched a naval attack on this seagull, and the seagull is fighting for its dear life. At one point, the seagull manages to free itself, but it's not able to take off. The mink doesn't let up and continues its vicious attack on the bird without holding back. The poor seagull flaps its wings, but it looks like it's all for nothing because the damage is done. And I think it's only a matter of time before the mink blasts a few torpedoes in the seagull's direction and gets what he wants. The owner of these geese watched footage from his security camera that showed a mink kill one of his full-grown geese. The other geese watched, helpless, while the mink was doing a job on their friend. Geese are usually aggressive and can deliver an attack, so I'm surprised they just stood there. I guess they consider the mink a formidable opponent, and none of them wanted to risk their lives. In the end, they walked away while the mink finished the job. This mink gets into a territorial dispute with a kingfisher bird, and it looks like the mink doesn't appreciate the bird hanging around his property. He just finished renovating it a few months ago, and he's letting the bird know. It looks like the birds don't really care, and they even decide to have a little fun right in front of the mink's home. They should be arrested for indecent exposure. Number 11. Mink and weasel versus vole. In this video, you can see a weasel hunting and attacking a bank vole. The speed of this animal is unbelievable. In fact, it looks as though the video is on fast forward. Weasels are not big, but they are feisty, and you can see it in action in this video. This weasel wrestles this vole and kills it. When a weasel targets its prey, it's almost a sure kill. The weasel can be seen dragging the dead vole into the forest. Rarely seen in its white winter coat and black tipped tail, onlookers can't believe their eyes when a vole came running through the snow before being ambushed by a stoat that came bounding after it. One of the onlookers quickly grabbed his camera and caught the tail end of it. Number 10. Mink and weasel attack snake. Onlookers saw a mink run across the road ahead of them as they walked down a country road. The mink had cornered what appeared to be a northern water snake, about 24 inches long. By the time they approached it, they watched as the mink chewed on the snake's tail and then went under the water snake to get to the head. The snake was killed by the mink after repeated attempts to pull it out from under a rock, but by then, the snake's body was firmly stuck between the rocks. The mink looked at them every now and then, but quickly returned to his task. A woman and her 11-year-old daughter were hiking with their dog at a state wildlife management area near their home, when the daughter reported seeing something move in the grass. So with her new camera, she was able to capture something unique, whether on a nature trail or not. It just goes to show that perseverance and patience pays off. A mink had snatched a snake, and it wasn't a small snake, but the mink was pulling the snake towards it and attacking it until the snake was no longer alive. Perhaps minks and weasels are not as adept as mongooses to defeat snakes, but this weasel seems to have gone to the Mongoose Academy and completely outperforms the snake as it sends it slithering back to mama. Number 9. Mink attacks rat. In this video, a wild mink chases a rat through some bushes and into a backyard wildlife pond before choking the rodent to death and carrying it back out of the water and into his kitchen. This mink goes for a swim, but it's just to get to the other side because a huge rat is walking around. Once the mink reaches his destination, he jumps the rat. The rat fights back and takes the fight into the water, but the mink is relentless and drags the rat out of the water to annihilate it. This is one strong rat, and I must commend it for putting up such a fight. But in the end, the mink is just too strong. If a rat gets lost in the garden and Zippy emerges from her cage, she promptly locates the rat, regardless of where she hides. It's over swiftly after a short time. Number 8. Mink and marten attack rabbit. This mink is teaching this rabbit a lesson in the art of war, and the rabbit is not enjoying it. It's trying to escape and run for its life, but the water weasel is holding on tight. Very tight, as a matter of fact. If you watch the mink carefully, it's suffocating the rabbit the same way big cats kill their prey, and you can see the rabbit slowly dying in the grasp of the little furry predator. Then the mink drags the bunny to a safer and more discreet place to eat it. It's a lot of work for the mink because the rabbit is quite big. This rabbit was strolling along on this nice winter road when it was ambushed by a crazy mink. The mink tried to hold on to the bigger rabbit, but the rabbit was putting up a fight and got away momentarily, but the mink was not about to let go of such a tasty meal. The mink bit and tried to choke the rabbit, but the fluffy bunny was tough. However, it could only resist the mink's constant biting for so long and eventually succumbed to the attack. This chase is worthy of the best Hollywood action films as a mink chases a rabbit on a snow-covered road. Just when it looks like the rabbit is going to escape, the mink catches up to it and makes the kill. The mink in this video is killing a rabbit twice its size, and all the rabbit can do is hope for a quick death. It is obvious rabbits can't defend themselves against weasel family members, and this video is another demonstration of this. A mink spots a rabbit, and after an electrifying chase over some rocks and small hills, the marten makes the kill. Number 7. Mink hunting fish. Who needs a fishing rod and bait when you own a mink? This guy brought his mink on a fishing trip, and the mink kept bringing him fish after fish. What's amazing about this is not the mink's amazing hunting abilities, but how he brings the fish back to his handler. You can see the mink underwater, looking for fish. Even the dog is impressed when the mink comes out of the water with another fish. You can see the man using his